which has two parts, and that are the muscles, sphincter and dilator pupillae. The stroma of the iris, okay, the stroma of the iris will contain the sphincter pupillae and dilator pupillae muscles. And the next two layers would be the anterior and the posterior epithelial layer, right? So let me annotate. These both are anterior and posterior epithelial layer of iris. Now if we divide the iris into two parts, anterior and the posterior zones, then the anterior would be the ciliary zone and the posterior would be the pupillary zone. And this particular part, I'm just elongating it to make sure that it divides the ciliary zone and the pupillary zone, and this is known as colorate of iris. So this whole would constitute the iris. Now we know that behind the iris we have the lens. So let us draw a lens here. So this is our lens just behind the iris. Let me annotate this as iris. And this is our lens. Let us draw some ciliary zonules, ciliary ligaments to hold the lens. So these are the ciliary zonules or the zonular ligaments. Let us annotate this. These are ciliary zonules, also known as zonular ligaments that hold the lens. So this hole was from here to here would be constituting the ciliary body, and this is only 2 mm. This is 4 mm and this is 2 mm, pars plana and pars plicata respectively. Now if we look at this sclera and the choroid, this space, we will annotate it and give it a name. This particular space is known as suprachoroidal space. This space has an importance of outflow of the aqueous humor. Now we come on to the sclera, and we all know that sclera continues anteriorly. After sclera would be the part of the cornea. So let us draw the cornea. And let us annotate this space. And this particular space is called limbus. Limbus is a junction between the sclera and the cornea. Let us zoom in. Sclera and cornea. Now again, the cornea has 5 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And similarly, they are anterior epithelium, Bowman's membrane, the stroma, the Dua's membrane. This has been the new addition, and the Descemet's membrane. And finally, this is the endothelium. So that was our anatomy of the anterior eyeball from the top view and transverse section. And once again, we will quickly go through all these parts. This is the sclera. Just above the sclera is the Tennant's capsule. Above the Tennant's capsule, there is a layer of conjunctiva. Here is the palpebral conjunctiva. There would be under the lid, and this would be the exposed conjunctiva known as bulbar conjunctiva. This is choroid, has 3 parts: suprachoroidal space between the sclera and the choroid, the suprachoroidal part of the choroid, stromal part, basal lamina, which is also known as the Brooks membrane. Now this is ora serrata. It is junction between the retina and the ciliary body. The ciliary body consists of the pars plana, pars plicata, and which is continuous as iris. Pars plana has some of the parts, pars plicata doesn't have any part, but these processes particularly are having the ciliary zonules or the suspensory zonules, which will be suspending the lens. Iris stroma have the sphincter and the dilata papillae. It also has the anterior and the posterior epithelial layer, and the whole iris will be divided into ciliary zone and the pupillary zone through coloroid. Now the sclera and the cornea are separated by the limbus, and this cornea has 5 parts. That would be anterior epithelium, the Bowman's membrane, the stroma, Dua's membrane, Descemet's membrane, and the endothelium. So that was the anterior anatomy of the eyeball.